you studio, what better place, well, I'm Scott Morris. I'm so sorry 2 weeks ago I wasn't here. We had to watch me on video. It bored me too. So I wasn't here because I was out hawking my brand new book, Care: How People of Faith Can Respond to Our Broken Health System. And how I'm here to tell you that if you buy this book off Amazon, you read it, I guarantee that you will get an A in this course. I'm not giving out grades, but anyway, it is something, if you're interested in serving the underserved, you might actually find it for good. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about Crosstown, but we're in this building. Shortly before coming to this course, most of you have been to Crosstown at some level, right? Have you ever noticed the columns? They are every 20 feet. They do not go away. But Haverford College, anybody know where Haverford College is? In Haverford, Pennsylvania. And it is a Quaker college, a little small Quaker school. And in their boardroom, they were intentionally created to look just like this room right now. There is a column right in the middle of the room. So anybody want to venture why they did that? So what does that column make me do right now? Walk around, because I can't see everybody, right? So the point of the column being in their boardroom where they're making decisions is it forces you to shift your position so that you can see the other person. Wonderful idea, right? So we didn't intentionally do that here at Crosstown. It just came that way. So this building was built in 1927 as a Sears distribution center. So hopefully y'all are old enough to remember what Sears even was. But Sears was Amazon before anybody thought of Amazon. They built 10 distribution centers around the country. They all had the same architect. They all pretty much look alike. This building was built in 1927. And out of it, anything that was ordered out of the Sears catalog that was distributed for the most part in the Southeast. So if you grew up anywhere in Tennessee or Mississippi or Louisiana, it's where your mother got her first washing machine, your dad got his first bike. I promise you, they both, when they were kids, they would look through the Sears catalog, and in the toy section, they would circle things and dog-ear the page and leave it by their parents, hoping that they would buy it for them for Christmas. You go ask your parents, and I will guarantee you they did that. But as a result of Sears' failed business practices, they quit publishing the catalog in 1992. And as a result, this building was completely abandoned. Anybody grow up in Memphis and remember what it might have looked like when you were a kid? But this building was a place where virtually everybody my age, or if you're over 50, you came to this building in Memphis for some reason or the other. Interesting enough, it was the one building in Memphis that if you were African American in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, you could walk through the front door of a white-owned building. It was the only business out here, and for that reason, in the renovation of the building, many, many people across the board were very interested in what we were doing. But when the building was abandoned, it sat totally vacant. There were 3,200 windows. Every last one was broken. It was surrounded in barbed wire. It got to be wide with gangs, right? Anything else in the building? What more was there to say? And so on July 8th, 2011, so 12 years ago, young art historian Todd Richardson came to talk to me about the idea that he and his artist friends had of turning this building into an artist colony. That is a financially viable idea, right? No, that idea has no chance to succeed. So literally, all they wanted was for Church Health to be their doctors once they moved in here. Now, mind you, I started Church Health in 1987 on a little house in the corner of Peabody and Bellevue. We saw 12 patients the first day we were open. It's the fewest we've ever seen. There are now over 80,000 people who depend on Church Health for healthcare. Doesn't mean we see them every year, but there are people out there who, if they get sick, they need to go to the doctor, they're coming here. So we had grown into 13 buildings and become very inefficient. And what Todd wanted Church Health to do was just to be their doctor. But because of that inefficiency, I said to him in 2011 was, well, what if we move in there with you? Well, I married one crazy idea with another crazy idea. The next 3.5 years, he and I become developers until where there is now, there are 47 entities that have signed long-term leases to be in the building. There are 265 apartments, they're all leased. And it is amazing what $300 million can do with an abandoned building. So Church Health is the anchor tenant. We have 150,000 square feet here. And you know, I still love our columns. You know, they don't go away, and so we've always had to be very creative about how to deal with them. Now, as a result of the columns, we had to add on 3 buildings. One, Crosstown Theater. Hopefully you've been to the theater before. You know, it's hard to have a theater with a column right in the middle, right? You can't actually see what's going on stage. So we had to add a new building for that. The high school had to add a gymnasium, same thing, hard to play basketball with a column in the middle of the floor. And then Crosstown Brewery, who's been to Crosstown Brewery, stop raising your hands. So we learned, this is for all of you as scientists, probably didn't know this. You cannot brew beer in a building like this without killing people. The process makes it where you can't breathe. So we had to add another building at the end of the property, which is now across from a brewery. Now, all of this is a reflection of how Church Health views the world and how we think about health. You know, Crosstown is, we think of it as a vertical urban village built around health, education, and the arts. But it is very much about how we think about health and about this whole idea of how serving the underserved matters. So if you remember on the tape, I'm sure I said that our view of being healthy is that it can't be about the absence of disease. And the World Health Organization will agree with that. What we think being healthy is about 3 things: having more joy in your life, having more love in your life, and being driven closer to things greater than we are. Now, we would call that God. You don't have to call that God. But for all of us, there are things greater in life that matter to us. But if this is what it takes to be healthy, more joy, more love, being driven closer to God, it doesn't have a lot to do with the doctor. It doesn't have hardly anything to do with the doctor. But for each of you, so we all know medical school, raise your hand. But dental school, there's no dental.
Dinner here?
We don't need to go there. PT,
PTOT.
OT. All right. What am I missing? Graduate students? Pharmacy. Oh my God. Yes, I'm sorry. Okay. Well, that's wonderful. So Church Health believes in this mix. And for all the medical school students in here, I mean, what are the practical implications of what I just said? More joy, more love, being driven closer to God. But let's start with, who here got an A in the course on joy? Wait a minute. There is not a course on joy, is there? I mean, has anybody talked to you in this way about what healthcare is all about? The answer to that, I'm sure, is no. But this is what it takes to be healthy, and how we live into being healthy is so important. But what are the practical implications of this? but it led us to create this thing we call the model for healthy living. This is just a riff from the social determinant. But we argue there are 7 things in life that are equally important that must be in balance if you're going to be healthy. So medical care is one, but it's only one. Only 10% of anybody's health outcomes has anything to do with what the doctor, the hospital, or drugs are going to do. 10%. Now, our country is spending $1 trillion a year on those 3 things. I think you could argue we're not spending the money very wisely. Nutrition, our mothers told us we are what we eat. They were right. Movement, our bodies were made to move. Emotions, family and friends, work, we define work as something to bring meaning to your life. And then we will argue your faith life is as important as anything the doctor would do. But this is not about getting people to believe the way Scott believes. But it is critical. Your patients are going to want to talk to you about issues of faith and how it matters in their life. But just as you never had the joy course or the love course, you have not been taught how to engage patients around spirituality. I can tell you that if y'all end up coming to our residency, which I would love for, at least 6 a year ago to do, we spend an entire Wednesday afternoon every month with the residents talking about how to engage patients on spirituality. Because patients want to have that conversation with their doctor, but doctors have no skill on being able to do this. What we know how to do is give people drugs. We need the pharmacists, no question about that. But there's more to this. When you think about our bodies, our bodies work more as electrical systems than they do chemical systems. Our brains, our hearts, our muscles, it's electricity, right? And yet we have built a healthcare system that is built around chemistry. It is like if the lights are flickering in here, if we were to call the plumber, it's probably not going to work. And it's why the drugs so often don't work. For all of my pharmacy friends, all drugs are poisons. That is how they work. They poison our body to prevent it from doing something it's naturally trying to do. You got to be pretty doggone smart to override the body the way God created it. Thank God the pills don't work very well. If we actually did everything they tell us they do on TV, we'd be killing people right and left. And we are already killing people all the time with bad medicine. Okay. This matters if you're focused on the underserved, because the drugs are expensive. Access to the doctor for most people is beyond understanding. And then we have to find a way to help people live a healthy life. And our healthcare system is fundamentally broken. Now, if you want to know more about how I think about this, buy this book and read it. But that's all I want to talk about tonight. What we have with you are 3 of my partners who I think you're going to love hearing their story about how they got called serving the underserved. So this is Dr. Fergus. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, Dr. Nelson, Dr. Thomas. But I'm going to start with this. All 3 of y'all went to, these 2 are physicians, he's a dentist. You go to medical school, dental school, you all go out into private practice. That is how you began your careers. And then you found your way here. So why? What happened? How did you get drawn for the issues of serving the underserved? And why does it matter to you now? But with Sheila, okay.
I don't need the.
You don't need this mic. I don't know if we need a microphone.
I'm pretty loud, so if you don't hear me, raise your hand. But, so I was in private practice. I had worked with residents before, so I actually worked with the residency program that's here. That's a collaboration with Baptist Hospital. So I had been in residency before and decided I was gonna go in practice for a while. And I enjoyed it, but it was something that I kept missing. And what I noticed as I had students rotate with me and even family members that became ill, I noticed that there was something missing in doctrine. And I thought, what just happened to medicine? What happened to the compassion and what happened to the humility? Well, this wonderful lady sitting next to me calls me up and said, how happy are you in that private practice? I said, well, something's missing and I'm not as happy as I really want to be.
But Sheila, what was missing? I mean,
What was missing? What was missing was, I don't even know how to describe. I felt that there was a disconnect between physicians and patients. And I didn't know why that was there. I met doctors that seemed to not be able to relate to patients, and I thought, what happens to those patients that don't have this access that my parent or brother had? What happens to them? If I see this happening to them, what's happening to these other people? I've always seen patients that had problems with access to care throughout my entire career. And I always struggle with how I'm gonna get these people taken care of.
But look, you're the doctor. Didn't you have total control over that?
Absolutely no control.
Wait a minute, you're the doctor. How do you not have control over that?
Absolutely no control. I had to figure out ways to work around the system to get things done that I know needed to be done for patients of mine. And I thought, this is insane. I didn't go to medical school for this. All I want to do is practice medicine. Why am I playing this politician? I don't want to do this. And I thought something is broken somewhere and it's got to be fixed. Where can I go to do this? Well, he invites me to coffee one Saturday morning and she starts to tell me. Now, I already had some associate church health before because I was in a building right in front of them and they had this wonderful facility that was next door to us that patients learn how to cook, and they swim, and they had all kinds of things for patients.
This is down the Baptist College of Nursing, so that.
Right. So I was always sending patients over there all the time. But she told me about what was here at Church Health, and I said, you have got to be kidding me. I said, there is no way that there's a place that actually does things that help patients, and you don't have to do all of these crazy things to get it done. Matter of fact, I found it easier to get things done for the underserved patients here at Church Health than I did for those patients with those insurances that they pay tons of money for. I had to jump through more hoops. I found myself doing things that I know didn't make any difference and it wasn't going to, just to get to the point where I could get what needed to be done for them done.
Okay, why did you want to do this? What was calling you to be that type of doctor?
I wanted to see doctors change. I wanted to see the compassion and the humility come back. What's a better way to learn it than to take care of patients that are underserved? Because the stories that they tell you, if you don't have a heart, then there is something wrong with you. And you quickly start to say, oh my gosh, there's something out here worse than I could ever imagine. So you are compelled to help them at that point because of the stories that they tell you. You can't believe it. You can't believe they're even standing in front of you. You can't believe some of them are still alive with what they've had to endure to get to that point. So you are compelled to help those people. That's what you went to school for. Can't tell me you didn't. You want to help people. Well, these people are just begging for your help. And every day that you see them, the little bit of things, little tiny things that you do for people, they are so grateful. And it's that joy that I think I was looking for to feel when I know that I've helped someone, even the smallest thing. And I leave here happy every day. I can have a get up and I don't feel so great. And I get to work and I walk into the room of a patient and it's just something totally different. It's definitely with patients that have had to struggle to get their health taken care of. And I mean, really, really struggle.
All right, we're going to come back to that. But one last thing. So why are you drawn to teach in the residency?
Well, that's why I'm drawn, because I want to see residents learn how to take care of patients that are out there struggling, trying to be healthy. I want them to learn that there's not just medications. There's this other whole thing that you're forgetting, just like the model of healthy living. You've got to include all those things. So we talking about holistic with the W, whole, okay? The whole patient, taking care of everything about them. And I find it a place where I can go in there and talk to patients about anything. You know, if I want to pray with them, I can do that because it is not discouraged here at Church. You're actually encouraged to do those things. I can tell patients about my own health problems that sometimes will ease them about what needs to be done to help them. So I was drawn to show doctors, this is how medicine is supposed to be. This is what we signed up for. This is what we want to do. And all of those other things that tends to draw us away from taking care of other human beings. You're gonna learn it when you are taking care of non-underserved. There's no way of getting around.
Right, that's wonderful. We're gonna come back. So Dr. Perkins, so you were the only person at Church Health older than me. So you were a very successful dentist in private practice. Y'all, people are endlessly asking me, why did I steal their dentist? And that was years ago. So what is the story with you? How did you end up coming here? And why?
Well, again, my name's Steve Perkins. I'm from Memphis. Grew up here with White Station High School. When I graduated, I went up to UT Knoxville and came back here, went to dental school. Originally, I was thinking about medical school, but once I got up to UT and joined the fraternity, I found out fraternity life and medical school don't mix too well. So anyway, I enjoy working with my hands and I enjoy helping patients. And so I thought, well, dentistry might be something that I would enjoy. So I went ahead and applied to dental school, got in, graduated in '78, did what they call a general practice residency over at the DA for a year. Went back to UT and started teaching on the clinic floor. I would check students' work, work in the laboratory with them. I enjoyed that, but I'd gone to school to do private practice, so I went ahead and opened up a practice in '81. Got started, just hung up
That's
my
before
sheet.
most of them were born.
Anyway, I opened up my practice. I enjoyed it for a while. Dentistry is very tedious, as you know, and it's pretty stressful. And I found out it was hard work. But, you know, I enjoyed doing the dentistry part of it. Wound up in, I guess, in the minds there, really becoming discouraged with private practice, dealing with the insurance, dealing with administration, dealing with the government. It just, there was no joy. So I started looking around. At that time, Church Health Center was going. I volunteered for Church Health Center starting when y'all were everybody. And would come in and volunteer to work at nights. Found that was working. Bellevue Church had a dental van, home dental clinic, went around the city. And I would volunteer for that. We'd go to underserved areas of the city and provide free dentistry, mostly extractions. And I found that very rewarding. So time went on. I continued to get more depressed and anxious about private practice. And just, it was a dead end. And so I was talking to some friends of mine, one dentist in particular. The patient of his was Mike Sturdivant, who was an administrator here at Church Health. And she mentioned to Dr.
Billy?
No, Kate.
Kate.
Not Mike. No,
That's
But anyway, that she was looking for a dentist for Church Health Center. So he told her that I was achieving with private practice. So she contacted me. And I tell you what, if that wasn't,
God thing.
And then it wasn't gonna be. It was because I was at the end of my road and I didn't know where I was gonna go. And
So Steve, you've been very open about how this led you to be depressed, and, I mean, why did private practice take you down that path, you think?
I think it was just, I hated the administration. I enjoyed working with the practice. I enjoyed helping people and the relationships that I had with them. But the business aspect of it just turned me off. I had learned dental skills to go out and help people. Instead, I was constantly trying to sell, you know, just all the headaches involved with running your own business.
Right, well, so you come here and you strike me as a pretty happy camper now, so, well, so how is it different?
Well, even here, as soon as I came in here, the camaraderie, the support here, everybody that works here is behind the mission, serving the underserved. Where I work in the dental clinic, I wasn't sure what working doing nonprofit dentistry was going to be like. We've got a 24/7 clinic. We've got state-of-the-art facilities. The patients could not be more grateful. They come in, a lot of them can't get jobs or they're embarrassed to go to the job interview because of the way they look. They come in and see us, and we change their smile and change their life. Just one thing in particular that we do that I love doing is when we make dentures, a lot of times we make what's called an immediate denture. We take out the back teeth, leave the front teeth for cosmetics, make the denture. The day comes to give them the denture. We take out the front teeth, black, their snags, they look terrible. We put that denture in, and the look on their face when we give them a mirror, it's just unbelievable. So I really enjoyed that.
But I think both of y'all have pointed something I don't want to get missed, is that the commitment to the mission. I mean, what have you learned about our mission since you've been working? And how does that impact this issue of joy?
When you talk about spirituality, spiritual aspect, you're talking to patients. Besides seeing the church health people that have no insurance, have no place to go, come here, they receive medical, dental, physical therapy, optometry, behavioral health. It's total patient care.
Great. All right, Dr. Nelson. So not a too dissimilar story here in that you go to UT, you tell that story, you're in private practice, and then you ultimately come here. So tell everybody how that came
Yeah,
about.
well, look, I went to the other UT, the one west of the Mississippi.
Oh, yes. That-
Established. Texas. Actually, my first job was in North Carolina at a community health center, which we now call it UHCs, but in the 80s they didn't call them that. So, so I worked with an underserved population in rural North Carolina. And then I moved to Memphis. My husband's a molecular biologist. He teaches at UT. Some of you kind of teach about cytochrome P450. That's his thing, right? David Nelson Taylor. So the job was exciting,
And
I know,
I
right?
just want to say that and that's what we not.
So, but the dual career marriage, right? If you want to talk to me about that, right? That's the thing, right? So anyway, we come here and I had a job at the other UT, the one here on faculty for a while. And then, things happened. I went into private practice, something I said I would never do. I said I would never go into private practice because I knew that I wanted to take care of the underserved or be in academics forever. Well, never say never. That's the other thing. I mean, I think one lesson from my career is that I did something for 5 years and something else for 5 years. It's okay. Like somehow in medical school, they put this pressure on you that you have got to decide when you're a second year medical student what you're going to do the rest of your life. Lies, right? You can go into something, you don't like it, you change it, you can do something else. So let me just give you that permission right now and blow up all this mess that they're telling you, right? So came here and I moved here in 94 and I found out about church health, I think 1998, because I still remember my first day coming down to volunteer because we have night clinic and people who have regular day jobs can still come volunteer here at night. I found out, I thought, that's the coolest thing ever. And I remember Scott Morris met me. I remember I got lost, which is not unusual. I can't find my way out of the paper bag, but I took the wrong Lamar exit, so I was late. No, wait, whatever. So got here and saw a few patients. In fact, I remember the first patient I saw had postpartum cardiomyopathy. Whoa. So, you know, I'm thinking it's gonna be a sore throat or a sore toe. Oh, yeah, that was real people with real disease. I've said that before, Scott. Anyway, we have real people with real disease. So came here and I
Which is
volunteered.
actually a problem with suburban medicine, right? Particularly with, you don't have people come in on a regular basis and say, I'm going to Europe in 2 weeks and I want to be healthy, make it happen. I got nothing for that. It is a total waste of your time and it's very deflating.
Oh my gosh, it's so true. So anyway, so I was fortunate to volunteer here for a long time. And then Scott opened up a practice on that island called Harbor of Health. If you island, get this Cornelia to see the street. I was the doctor there for 10 years. And then in 2015, I still volunteered here, but then I say 2015, they put me on the payroll. I think I told you that before. So I think I've always been drawn to this kind of work. But you know, I had to raise kids and put them through college and all the bills and stuff. And so was in private practice and doing that. But now I'm very happy to be here. So,
Right, so,
sorry.
but your commitment to serving underserved goes well beyond here. So talk about Haiti.
Well, talk about Haiti, right? So starting in 2008, I started taking medical service trips, not medical mission trips, because we're not taking Jesus to Haiti. Jesus is alive and well in Haiti. Thank you very much. So medical service trips, that language is very intentional, of folks. I took some clinic assistant scholars with me, back in the day. So twice a year, I would go work at St. Vincent School for Handicapped Children, which is in Port-au-Prince and has 250 kids who are either blind or deaf or in wheelchairs. The most joyful, you would think that a school for handicapped children in the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere would be a pleasant place. It is, you're gonna come with me someday. So that'd be joyful. Anyway, since 2018, I haven't been able to go because you know what's going on in Haiti. But and in fact, I've recruited people out of this course. Students have got multiple medical students who've gone with me down there, pharmacy students. But right now, we can't go. So what's to say about that?
All right, well, so Sheila, you talked about this as well, and Susan, I know you were very open about this issue, but you talked about being with patients and your own medical issues can become a part of the conversation. So Dr. Nelson, that's up front, you're 42 years old. 43 years old and developed breast cancer.
Yep.
And just talk about how your own personal experience with that has influenced the way you care for patients who have almost no access at times to breast care.
Well, so at 43, when I got breast cancer, at the time I was in private practice. I was delivering babies, worked out of 3 hospitals. Anyway, things we do. My daughter was 10 years old, so yeah. A couple of things I remember. I have 2 giant scrapbooks full of notes that patients wrote me. Just to say, you know, we're hearing about it. People brought me dinner. Patients would bring me dinner. I remember one patient I went in to see, two stories. One, I went in one afternoon. I wasn't really feeling good. And, you know, I was going through chemo and had the whole scarf and everything. And I would say to, I remember this man was a truck driver, Mr. Charles. How are you, Mr. Charles? How can I help you? He says, I had nothing wrong with me. I just came to check on you. So he had made an appointment, sat in my waiting room, right, just to see that I was okay. And then I made some joke about, I apologize for the wig or the whatever it was. And he said, that's okay, Dr. Davis. And that carried me the rest of the week, right? One other patient, I remember I went in looking like, a full bowl of gravy. And she said, you need to go home. So she takes my hand and she pulls me on the exam room and goes to the nurse and says, she's going home, you just can't stop having. So that was a gift that, so we're talking about this relationship with patients. And Scott, you've said something, and maybe you can say it much better than I can, but the idea that, and I hope you will in a second, what you say about, in medical school, they tell you not to share yourself with patients.
Well, when I was, a third year medical student, I think, or first, second, or third, or fourth. So you're gonna, the next year or two, and those of you on the ward as well, I mean, you walk around, like as a herd, and, third year medical students often, responsible for making a presentation of their patient, and there's two third-year medical students, me and my colleague, and we're terrified about how to do this. You're running a very, important, I guess, we thought so, attending. And she, my colleague, is presenting her patient, and she starts with things that I think are incredibly important, like things about who this patient is. I can tell you, if y'all end up doing a rotation with us in any way, shape, or form, and you're presenting to me, you better tell me that stuff. Half of our patients speak Spanish these days, and so people's immigration status matters at every turn. Even if they were born in Memphis, they have family that they're worried about, and you have to know their immigration status, because 50% of people who come to primary care doctors have no medical trouble. People come to doctors for reasons they used to come to priests. But we have created a healthcare system and a world, if you will, that has divided us as human beings into a body and a spirit. We put the body on one side and say it's the purview of science and medicine. Put the spirit on the other. So it's okay for people of faith to mess around with their spirit, but we should never cross this line and actually care about our bodies. And so what happens in the emergency room every day is people go to the emergency with pain in their heart, and we do an EKG, we do an MRI, we put them on a treadmill, and all those tests are normal, and we tell the patient there's nothing wrong with you. And the fact of the matter is that you can MRI somebody's chest all day long, and you will never know what a broken heart looks like. This is part of how our healthcare system is so fundamentally broken. Anyway, my third year colleague is presenting, and then before she can even get to even halfway through her presentation, the attending interrupts her and says to her, young lady, I think you have gotten too close to your patient. Look, nobody has to be taught how to keep distance from another human being. That comes naturally. What you have to learn how to do is exactly what she was doing. Find a way to get close to somebody. And much of what we talk about in healthcare and medicine is so fundamentally flawed because of this inability to recognize that the spiritual component in life matters, and that we are not just mechanistic machines that we're trying to put a little grease on to make oil up and make it work better. Anyway, that's.
Well, so when I have somebody who's diagnosed with breast cancer, I don't let the nurse call them, I call them, right? And I say, listen, I had it at 43, and then the whole conversation changes, right? Because then, first of all, they are validated because they know that I'm not just thinking they're another case or whatever. And then they can, ask, they don't usually ask me too many questions, but they feel like they can. I'll give them my cell phone because. And you think I have my cell phone out all over notice. It's not, first of all, people, they don't abuse it. They really don't. And sometimes when they go to the ER and they've been sitting there for 6 hours, they need me to call and say, what are y'all doing? Mrs. Jones said, I mean,
But
helping
Rob,
them advocate.
talk about what it's like to be an uninsured woman in Memphis, Tennessee,
With a
breast
breast lump.
color, and you have a lump in your breast.
Right.
How does that work?
Well,
Or let's go how it doesn't work.
first of all, because you think that you have to go to the emergency room, which that costs $10,000, right? Fortunately, you can come to Church Health, and if you don't know about Church Health, that's tough. You come to Church Health, then there's a state-funded program, Tennessee Breast and Cervical Cancer, who will pay for your mammograms and get you on TennCare and all that, so. But I can just, so if you are a woman of color, and we know this because we did a study, if you remember, about 5 years ago, Dr. Salome, we had 9 patients that we followed over 2 years that were women of color who got diagnosed with breast cancer. And 3 of them they didn't get care. They didn't get, I think it's called coordinated care, there's some word for it anyway. And we tried to figure out why, and this was a retrospective study. One of our doctors went back through to try to figure out why they think, because we have the resources, right? It's so painful to read the doctor's notes. Encourage Mrs. Jones. Well, Mrs. Jones would have reasons like, who's going to take care of my husband? I mean, said there's not a pill for that, right? So you have to, and you can't solve all of that, right? Part of Dr. Morrison's wisdom is just knowing that I, as a doctor, can't solve all of that. I do have to recognize it's team work. So get social work, get chaplain, get a behavioral health, but at least be aware that you could be the smartest doctor and prescribe exactly the right treatment in that patient will be well. Don't acknowledge there's other things that she's.
So Sheila, you mentioned it as well. You talk about how these issues of revealing your own things can be really a powerful thing. It doesn't happen normally, especially if you're poor and uninsured.
Right. So, never forget, I was all 8, August the 8th, 2008. I woke up one morning and I couldn't move my right arm. Of course, Saturday morning, I was in total denial that something like a stroke could have happened. And I got up thinking, well, maybe it's just, what we say, it's asleep. Maybe I move it. I couldn't move it. I had to use this arm to move it. And I was still in denial. So I called my mother up and said, you think you can come by my house? I'm having a little problem with my right arm. She comes over and she looks at me and she says, you sure you haven't had a stroke? I said, oh, no. Pinch nerve. That's it. It was a stroke. So, of course, now I can't, and by the time I got to the neurologist's office, I was now, my leg was weak and my face had started to. So he gave me a dose of Flavix in pharmacy, clopidogrel, in his office, a double dose, and sent me immediately over to Methodist University. And I was in there for a couple of days and discharged. But now I can't drive. So now I can't go to work. So now I'm in this thing of, okay, who am I and what am I? Because everything was about medicine for me. What's gonna happen? So mostly it was what's gonna happen to my patient? Who's gonna take care of them now? And so it did get around to some of my patients and those that could contact me and had my number, they started calling everybody saying, our Thomas is out, something's wrong. But she just doesn't disappear, okay? And I remember one patient contacted me and I told her I had a stroke. So then there was this frenzy of, oh no, what's gonna happen? Who's gonna be my doctor? I'm gonna have a doctor. So I can remember one day sitting in physical therapy looking out at Union Avenue because I was going to a facility over there, doing my exercises, and the physical therapist says to me, "No, you're not progressing like we expected you to." So now I'm thinking, oh, I'm never gonna get back to taking care of these patients that depended on me. And I had always had that connection with them because I purposely did. And that extra connection that we keep talking about. And so I'm sitting there and it occurred to me, maybe your focus in life is a little bit off. Maybe you need to regroup and think about what's important to you in life. And I did. I did a total mental change. And the next week, I kid you not, the physical therapist said, "Wow, you're really progressing more than I thought." And I thought, wow, it took that own internal change that I had to say to myself, "Sheila, you need to do something different with your life and with your career," that I started to get better. Well, I went back to work and I was still, so I was in a residency training program. I was faculty. And it was just something, once again, missing. Wasn't really able to make that connection. I wasn't supposed to really talk to patients about what had happened. Man, I did anyway. I always defied that. Let me just start with that. When people told me don't do it, I did it. Because it was working for me. And I mean, it was working for me because patients would tell me stuff that they didn't tell other doctors. Yeah, because I had that connection with them. And I always forced that. I knew about things that I could go in a room and be in there for a few minutes and know everything about it. I do have to tell this story. When I first got here, I'd be in the room and come out, and my medical assistant, and I was done with the patient and everything, and my medical assistant would go in and check the patient out and come back and say, "What did you do to me?" I said, "What do you mean?" "The patient is in there in tears." Because I had gotten into some aspects of their life that they didn't tell anybody. But anyway, so once I got back, that's when I left teaching and went to private practice because I felt I needed to have a change. I wasn't happy with this. And then this person sitting next to me, we had worked before together at UT, calls me up and said, "Hey, check out what's going on there." So of course, here I am. And then I started seeing patients that come in and that had strokes because they didn't have insurance. They hadn't gotten physical therapy and stuff they needed. And I knew that physical therapy brought me back, but none of you knew I had a stroke, couldn't tell. My arm is still kind of numb, so I always get my blood drawn on this side of shots. Feel some, but not as much. But when patients come in and I see what has happened because they didn't have insurance and they didn't have access, so they are not doing what they should be able to do if they had proper physical therapy. They will start down, "Well, I don't see how that's going to work, doctor, and I've had this," and they say, and I look at them and I say, "Well, here's a living proof sitting right in front of you." Look at me. And "What do you mean?" I said, and I go through the whole story, what I told you in 2000 and August 8, 2008, I woke up, I had a stroke, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you're back at work." I said, "Yeah. Now that you're here, because we have physical therapy, you're gonna go to physical therapy." So they are immediately motivated to go because they go, "Look, she couldn't do this and she couldn't," and I go through the whole story, just like what I told you. And they are now motivated to go to physical therapy, and I mean religiously on physical therapy. And they start to get better. So it's nothing better than see somebody roll into church house in a wheelchair, and several months down the road, they're actually walking with a walker or cane. And I have seen that. So that to me is utterly amazing.
All right, I'm gonna tell a couple of quick stories. We're gonna take a question or two, and then we're gonna take a brief break, okay? So, this is the complexity of caring for people who are uninsured, working minimum wage jobs, who don't have health insurance, who are strictly out of it. So, there's two ways people access our clinic. One, we're a real doctor's office. To see the two of them, you make an appointment. To see me, you come to our walk-in clinic or urgent care. The cost is $40. Same no matter what your problem. You got a cold, you got a broken bone, you're at desk work stuff. It's obviously a better deal the sicker you are, but for 45. So I'm seeing this guy who's 50 years old. He works in concrete. Anybody go work in concrete? Like, do that, like the worst job ever, right? It is like, it's so hard, it's a difficult job, but he's been doing it for his entire career. But he's complaining about pain in his knee. So I x-ray his knee and I put it up on the board and every last one of you would look at that and go, that ain't right. So he needs a knee replaced. So this is how Church Health works. We have an orthopedic surgeon willing to do the surgery for free, but I need anesthesia, radiology, pathology, all going to donate their time. We have an arrangement with the hospitals that as long as the physicians are donating their time, we can admit people free of charge. And there's not a problem somebody can have from the cradle to grave, we can't get it taken care of without the person getting a bill. And then I'm missing something. What am I missing? Prosthesis, we're gonna put it in his knee, because if we don't have that, he's gonna get a bill for $10,000. So Smith and Nephew is gonna donate that. It's amazing, right? It's what people oftentimes refer to as church health magic. It's actually not magic, it's a reflection of what happens when people are willing to come together to take care of our neighbors. So I tell it, we are gonna do this surgery and it's gonna take away your pain. And then he asked me, well, I have to miss work. I am totally bionic. I have 4 artificial joints, 2 hips and 2 knees. I could tell him with total certainty, you are gonna miss work. At which point he then says to me, I don't know, for now, the duct tape works just fine. You should not have to duct tape your knee in order to go to work in Memphis, Tennessee. So we make a plan. He starts to see our physical therapist to get him through that summer where he can keep working. He replaces his knee in the winter when he doesn't do concrete. He comes back to physical therapy so we can then get him back working that next spring. This is totally how church health works. Now, the other story is this. I see a guy who actually works for one of our volunteer doctors. He has a dental problem. He goes to the dentist. He can't afford the dentist. So he took measures into his own hands and he super glued his teeth together. What he didn't understand is that super glue will eat away all the enamel in your mouth. So by the time I saw him, his mouth was a total disaster. And this is America. When did it get to be that I'm working? I'm taking care of my family. You have dental pain, one of the worst pains you could have. And your only option is to super glue your mouth. All that is immoral. This is something we got to care deeply about. And the deeply is not just y'all. Y'all are here. I'm so proud that y'all have chosen on your own time to come to a class on serving underserved. But our entire society, community should care about this. I believe our faith community should care about this. But anybody ever heard a sermon on dental care? No, you haven't. But there's not a reason not to. And our faith communities need to take seriously that God gave us this body for a reason. Now, this is actually why church health exists. Now, you don't have to approach serving the underserved from a faith perspective. You don't. That is our perspective as to why we do it. But we are all over the board from our faith perspectives. Now, I'm actually preaching next Friday night at Temple Israel. Come hear me. If you've never been, you're invited. The rabbi at Temple Israel will tell you church health is the most Jewish institution in Memphis. I believe it. I embrace that. On Friday afternoons, we have Juma prayers here at Crosstown in our chapel. You know, I think the Muslims got something in praying 5 times a day. This is a way that we should all be able to grow together to do what God has called us to do, because it's the only way we can live into a better world and a better community. That's what serving the underserved should be. what I hope y'all are hearing about. I will say, for the dental medical student, you promised me you will at least learn the names of people. When you graduate from the school, just do that. All right, a couple of minutes for anybody got questions of the panel, just anything's fair game.
And let me just say, so.
Oh, sorry, am I going out?
No, I think we ought to do is take a break.
Okay.
And then when we come back, we're gonna split into 4 groups. You can divide your 4 groups of 15 or so, however many, I don't know if there's 6 people. And then we'll split up. She'll be the table, I'll be the table. Be the table, be it in Ms. Walsh, you can join whoever you want, whichever you want. So after you come back in, 5 or 7 minutes, if you could kind of, I don't know, push the table together and form 4 groups. I know y'all can do it, okay?
All right, there's a couple bathrooms right here.
I think so.
Yeah, she like. But we talked about me, just kind of just. We're in the same context. Yeah, we just met from the line. Right. I know, it's so fun. Oh, yeah, we went over to their, like, this was like, we have another thing too. Yeah, medical. Yeah. From Jackson. Yeah. Yeah, I love it. So I also like yeah, I feel like a big yeah. Yeah, we're I don't know, we got like 9% on that, right? I think it's like, go back to website. Yeah. We're kind of taking it. Nice to meet you. First. Next. So, first, one. You know, when I hear she, right, so it is, you know. Anyway, kind of have Q&A, y'all enjoy, and then about 5 or so they stayed on.
All right, yeah, by all means.
Glad to see so many.
like, oh, that's you. And I was like, you're the only guy, like, I'm honest. Like, but it was last
We have about 25
thought I was calling tomorrow. And it's
minutes.